Hi guys, it's me ChazzaHD and welcome to qualifying for the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix. Of course under the lights at Marina Bay, and hopefully we are in for another great qualifying session in 2019 and another great qualifying session at this circuit. Normally we do get, great qualifying sessions at this circuit because the drivers are right on the edge of grip and of commitment and all of that stuff, and that's why we get such great moments in qualifying at this circuit. But hopefully you guys are doing well no matter where you're on the world, no matter what time zone it is, and hopefully along with me you guys will enjoy qualifying today at Singapore, which gets underway of course in just under 1 hour's time. But before I get into the teams and how I think they will do based on say practice so far, let's first look at the results of practice 3, which ended about 1 hour ago in Singapore. Now, I must stress that with Charles Leclerc in P1, if you're a Ferrari fan, please calm down, because how many times have we seen Ferrari top a practice session and then in qualifying not deliver the goods when it matters? So, if you are a Ferrari fan, calm down. It's not, you're not right there for sure. Let's wait until qualifying to see that. But Charles Leclerc was P1, Lewis Hamilton was P2, Sebastian Vettel was P3, and then it was Bottas P4, Albon P5, Max Verstappen was P6, and then it was the two McLarens of Sainz and Norris, 7th and 8th, and then the 9th and 10th was Hülkenberg and Ricciardo, the two Renaults, and then from P11 to P20 was Stroll, Gasly, Raikkonen, Perez, Russell, Giovinazzi, Magnussen, Grosjean, Kubica, and Daniel Kvyat. Kvyat did not do a lap time because he had some sort of reliability issue where he was leaking out some oil during the session. But now let's get into the teams and look at how they're going to do. First off, Mercedes. In practice 2 yesterday, they looked very strong, and I still think they are the favourites for pole position. I know Ferrari topped practice 3, but let's be honest, practice 3 is not that representative because most of it does take place in the daylight, so I don't really count practice 3 as that relevant of a session. And if we do look at practice 2, which for me has been the only relevant session of the weekend so far, Mercedes, I think with Lewis Hamilton, are the favourites of pole position. As long as, when it matters, they can produce the pace and Lewis Hamilton can nail, the laps, I think they're going to be absolutely fine. I don't think they're going to be, at risk of ending up in 3rd or 4th or anything like that with Lewis Hamilton. With Valtteri Bottas, they're probably going to be P3 or P4 with Valtteri, because Valtteri this weekend so far has not really been on it and hasn't really been, in terms of lap time, that close or close enough to Lewis Hamilton in the practice sessions so far. So in terms of pole position, I think Mercedes can absolutely do it, but front row lockout, I do have to say, will be very difficult because Max Verstappen especially will be in there. And yeah, Valtteri this weekend so far after that crash in practice 1, just pace-wise has not really got it together. Next up though is the Scuderia Ferrari team. And yeah, in practice 3, yes, they were top. But again, calm down Ferrari fans. How many times have they showed great pace in practice 3 and then been miles off in qualifying? So let's wait and see what they actually do. And I'm still going to say that I think they'll be P5 and P6. That's still my expectation for Ferrari. I'm not thinking that, that they should be in the top 3. I don't expect Ferrari to be that quick. Maybe they can get P4 if Alex Albon is as far off his teammate as he was in practice 2. Maybe that can happen. But I don't see a top 3 finish, and I don't see pole position for Ferrari, because I just don't think genuinely, when everyone is pushing as hard as possible, when it matters most, I don't think Ferrari have a quick enough car. I just don't think they do, and I don't think the pace in practice 3 is genuine. I think Mercedes and especially Red Bull can go a lot faster than they did in practice 3. So if you are a Ferrari fan, what I would do is expect a 3rd row lockout. And then anything better than that is, of course, a plus. But after practice 3, don't go expecting pole position. don't go expecting pole position, because I just don't see it happening, and I don't think even Ferrari think it will happen. I think they know that, you know, the other two teams have a lot more to bring into qualifying in terms of pace. So keep the expectations a bit cooled. But if you do have a great qualifying, then of course that is great for you. And next up is Red Bull. Now, I think Red Bull do have the second best car in qualifying trim. I think in race trim, with Max Verstappen at least, I think they do have probably the fastest car in race trim. But in qualifying trim, they just lack that, you know, 10th or 2 to be on pole position, I think. I think Max Verstappen at the end of the session will absolutely be right there in the fight for pole position. I have no doubt about that whatsoever. But I just think, because the Red Bull with the Honda tends to just lack some speed in qualifying compared to what it can do in the race, I just don't think Max Verstappen can get pole position. And I think Max, if he does, end up on the front row, I think Max Verstappen will be, you know, a 10th and a half, 2 tenths away. I just don't think he'll have quite enough to compete. But I think as long as Max Verstappen can get at least onto the front row, that's a good result, because you never know what could happen in the race. If he gets a better start than Lewis Hamilton, say if he's on pole position, or a Valtteri Bottas, if he's on pole position somehow, then he could still end up winning the race. So a front row lockout, I think, or not lockout, a front row for Max Verstappen should be his aim. For Alex Albon, he has to try and be within a quarter of a second or a third of a second today, because if he is, then I reckon he could end up in the top 3 at best. Maybe P4 most likely, but if he's close enough like that to Verstappen, then I think he can end up in a position that for the team and for himself, for what he considers to be his home race, because it's so close to Thailand, it'll be a good result for him. So hopefully Alex Albon can cut out the mistakes he was making in practice 2, and he made quite a few of them, and hopefully he can get into a good enough position for the Red Bull team in qualifying, because of course in the race Red Bull are probably going to have, not massively over Mercedes, but probably going to have slightly faster race cars. So hopefully for Albon and Verstappen, they can put the car in good positions to go for possible race victory and a double podium tomorrow. But guys, let me know right now in the live chat, for the top 3 teams, what do you expect? Do you think Mercedes are the favourites for pole? Do you think Ferrari can get pole? And for Red Bull, do you think they can get pole, and who with? It's most likely going to be Max Verstappen, but let me know who you think will do it in the live chat, and in a moment I will read out your comments. But there is some important news that I need to talk about that came out, I'm not sure if it was yesterday or the day before, but I need to talk about it, and it's to do with Juan Manuel Correa. Now, as I last updated you guys, I think during the Italian Grand Prix weekend, Juan Manuel Correa was in, or on, life support basically. He was in critical condition. He had an acute respiratory failure. Good news, very good news. He's not on life support anymore. He's not in an induced coma, and he's not awake, but if he wants to be awake, he can. So at least there is positive news to talk about when it comes to him, and hopefully from the, Chaza HD F1 and the F1 family in general, and the motorsport family in general, I think we can all say, hopefully he gets better, because it'd be great to see him recover from, such a horrific event that occurred about a month ago. But yeah, let me now get to the comments and see what you guys have to say. Astro Stevo, great to see you, mate. Says, phew, great to hear Correa's condition is improving. It's great news. It really is great news. And he also says, yes, Mercedes, yes. Red Bull maybe, but think Mercedes will get it. Ferrari, very much doubt it when it comes to the fight for pole. Yeah, I think you're basically bang on there. Gasly for pole. Let me find some other comments. By the way, actually, no, I'll get onto this when I get to Toro Rosso later. There's actually been some news. And actually, you know what? I'll talk about it now. Sky F1, if you are familiar with their programming, they do a paddock walkabout right after the Practice 3 program. And I believe they interviewed Dr. Helmut Marko, and he has confirmed something for 2020 in terms of the Red Bull seat. He has said that Daniel Kvyat internally at the moment is confirmed to be a Toro Rosso driver for 2020, and that the Red Bull seat for 2020 is between Pierre Gasly and Alexander Albon, and they will make a decision as to who out of those two will get the seat alongside Max Verstappen after the Mexican Grand Prix. That is breaking news from the Singapore paddock. I do disagree with it. I think Daniel has done enough for a Red Bull seat. I understand why they won't put him in the car, because it would be embarrassing from a reputation standpoint, but quite frankly, I wouldn't care from a reputation standpoint. At the end of the day, you've got to put the best drivers in your car that you can. But yeah, that's the news. Kvyat is not going to be in a Red Bull next year, according to Helmut Marko. It's going to be Albon or Gasly, and if that is true, what he's saying, and it's not a bluff, then it will be Albon, because I don't see how Gasly can possibly get into that seat again, because he was so terrible, and so far in his 2 races as Daniel Kvyat's teammate, he hasn't been as good. So I think it really is Albon's seat to lose, I have to say. But let me look at some more comments. Lorenzo Bailey says Ferrari always has a good qualifying car, so I wouldn't be surprised if Ferrari can nick pole or a front row start. I would be surprised, and I think it is a bit overly optimistic to expect that, or to not be surprised if they do that. Their qualifying pace is really strong. I don't know where they... Well, I do know where they get it from. They get it from the power unit. Their qualifying mode is from another planet, quite frankly. But it's going to be kind of like Hungary, I think, this session. Their positions will not be good, but their lap time compared to pole position will not be that bad. Because if you look at Hungary, they were only 0.4 of a second off pole, and we were thinking, you know, Ferrari, they're improving, but then in the race, they ended up a minute behind, which is what? Basically being a second a lap slower than the race winner. So, when it comes to the upgrades Ferrari have brought, I have to say, we cannot say after qualifying whether they have worked. If they do somehow get pole position and win the race, then without a doubt, their upgrade to the floor and the front wing has worked. But if they get pole and then drop back massively in the race and end up nowhere near the race victory, then I don't think we can quite say that they have improved the car, you know, enough with their new parts. I think Albon will get a podium tomorrow, says someone there. Mostly an F1 fan says, surely this is Williams' best chance to get to Q2. Look at the FP3 results. Russell had a chance. Yeah, Williams are closer this weekend, and I think it's kind of similar to Hungary with Russell, isn't it? Russell in Hungary was, you know, racing around with the lower midfield cars and almost got into Q2. So if he bangs out an absolute brilliant lap and other drivers struggle, then maybe he can do it. But I think realistically, we've got to expect Williams to still be at the very back. But I will say, as we'll get on to in a moment, Haas and Alfa Romeo are so poor this weekend. Their car looks absolutely terrible. And I don't think those two teams really have a hope this weekend. So, yeah, maybe Williams can get involved. We'll see. Let me look at some other comments here. Michael Ewing says Ricciardo's going to qualify P8, finish the race P6 after some shenanigans. Well, if we have a 2017-esque start, then yeah, why not? Why not? Let me find some other comments and we'll get to the midfield. Anne says Lewis Hamilton must win the Singapore Grand Prix. Not necessarily. As long as he extends his lead in the World Championship, I don't think he necessarily needs to, win the race. I mean, of course, he wants to win it as soon as possible, so it's, done. And then he can concentrate on winning the team, the constructors, which is also going to be done very soon. But, yeah, all he has to do really is extend his World Championship lead, and I think he'll be absolutely fine. If Max Verstappen wins the race, but Lewis beats Valtteri, then, I think it's all good still, because once we get to Russia and Suzuka, I think Mercedes will probably have the best car, allowing Lewis Hamilton to be, in a great position. Right, let me find one final comment, then we'll get to the midfield. Seki Hybrid says Red Bull has setup issues here. Heard they have a new floor here. I haven't heard about any new updates for Red Bull, but the only updates I've heard about are Ferrari with the new floor and front wing, or new front nose cone, and Force India have a new big upgrade, which is basically all they have left for 2019. But though I have to say, in the podcast on Tuesday, me and Nib, well, mostly Nib, will cover the new upgrades. So yeah, make sure to check that out to see what new parts are on the cars. But let's now get on to that midfield, shall we? And first up, Renault. Renault are looking kind of about where I thought they would be at best. P9, P10 kind of area. To be honest, I thought this weekend it'd be more, say, P12, P13. I didn't think Renault would be special this weekend, but Renault are looking like they can get into the top 10 with both cars. Both drivers are good at this circuit. Daniel Ricciardo especially has a great record at Singapore. He's finished on the podium here 4 times when he was at Red Bull. So I think Ricciardo's definitely one to look out for in terms of who's going to do the best for the Renault team. But I don't think they have a car that can compete with McLaren, for example. McLaren, as I'll get onto in a moment, have the best car in the midfield this weekend. No doubt about it. They look about half a second quicker than Renault, in a similar way basically to Hungary, the last track we went to that was similar to this. And McLaren at that race were also dominantly on the 4th row of the grid. So I think Renault, if they can finish where they did in practice 3, I think that's a great result, honestly, because from that position, if that's where they do qualify, P9 and P10, they can then try and go on and put pressure on McLaren in the race to try and beat them, because of course they are still trying to beat them for P4 on the constructors, even though I don't think Renault have a good enough opportunity to do so. But P9 and P10, if they can get that like they did in practice 3, that would be great for the Renault team. And hopefully they can do so. But talking off McLaren, as I said a moment ago, McLaren do have the best car in the midfield. They look very strong. I think McLaren have a car that is way ahead of the rest of the midfield aerodynamically. I just don't see how any other team in the midfield can compete. McLaren have kind of their own platform in P7 and P8, I think. I just think they have enough of a gap of about 0.3 to half a second, to really get that 4th row lockout. If anything happens ahead, and it could, one of the top drivers could have a problem, could hit the wall and end up out of qualifying. So McLaren, if that does happen ahead, McLaren could end up with an even better position. And I think another thing we need to look out for, and I kind of said this during practice 2, during the practice 2 watch along, but look out for McLaren and their lap time compared to Ferrari, because McLaren, if then within half a second of Ferrari, then I think that shows you that McLaren probably aerodynamically this weekend have a better car than Ferrari, because the only reason Ferrari, are able to be in the top 3 at races where they're still terrible is really because of the power unit. So if McLaren are, say, 3 or 4 tenths off the fastest Ferrari driver, then I think you can absolutely say that McLaren have the third best aerodynamic package this weekend. But of course, we wait to see if that's actually going to be the case. It might not be, but again, we'll see what happens. But McLaren, they should be running the show at the front of the midfield, and hopefully they do, because they've had some bad luck, and I think they do deserve this weekend to have a strong weekend where they have a double points finish and confirm, or more so confirm, fourth in the Constructors. Next up is Alfa Romeo, and after Alfa, of course, it's Haas, and these two Ferrari customer teams look absolutely diabolical this weekend. The best Kimi Raikkonen has been able to do is about P13 so far this weekend, and you know, with Raikkonen, considering how good he is still at 39 years old, that if that's the best he can do, you know, so far in a weekend, that the car must be bad, and it is. The Alfa does look pretty bad. And it's not really a surprise, because this team have never really gone well here, even when they were Sauber, or even back when they were BMW. They've never gone well at Singapore, so it's never been, you know, a track where, you know, Alfa could come to and say, right, well, we're going to be very good here. There's never been a track like that for this team. So it's not really a surprise that Alfa, you know, ended up in that position. I will say, though, with the great race pace they do have, even at circuits sometimes where they're not that quick, if Kimi Raikkonen can qualify in, say, P13, and of course start on a harder compound of tyre, then there is an outside chance that Raikkonen could end up in the top 10 on Sunday. But in terms of pace today, on Saturday, Alfa Romeo have absolutely no chance of finishing in the top 10. None whatsoever. Their car is simply not quick enough, and I don't see how Alfa can possibly contend with teams like Renault, McLaren, even Racing Point. I think have a much faster car once, you know, their drivers don't hit the wall like Sergio Perez did in practice 3. But now let's go on to Haas. And Haas are basically a worse version of Alfa Romeo. They just don't have a good car. They look as though they are the slowest midfield team. Not really a big surprise, but still disappointing. And they might actually be under threat from Williams, and they might actually be competing with Williams this weekend. That is highly embarrassing for a team that wiped the floor with Williams in 2018, and points-wise in 2019 have wiped the floor with Williams. So it's very embarrassing for Haas. They've had such a terrible season, so many mistakes on track, mistakes with the car design, the sponsor. It's just been such a terrible season. I have to say, though, I really hope that Haas can get their act together, because I want to see this team do well. They're a great, you know, new young team. I want to see Haas F1, you know, properly compete with Renault like they did last season, or McLaren or Racing Point, but they're just not doing it, and it is so disappointing. And at this point, considering how slow the car has been this season and how they've just not been able to improve the car, I do feel sorry for some of them, because, you know, they're going to every weekend knowing that they have a 95% chance of not scoring points, so that they need basically massive amounts of luck or rain to finish in the points. It is a shame for the Haas F1 team, but, you know, it's their problem. They designed the car this way. They are responsible for not using the tyres in the right way, and that's why Haas this season have just not scored enough points to compete at the top of the midfield like they probably should have, considering how they qualify at times. But yeah, Haas, you know, terrible, absolutely terrible. But it's not a surprise, is it? We knew this coming into the weekend. Next up is Toro Rosso. Again, as I said a couple times so far this weekend, or this week, historically, Toro Rosso are very good at this circuit, and I think they are going to be good in qualifying. Whether they'll get in the top 10 is a completely different story, though. I think they can, but I don't think it will be, fourth row of the grid. I think at best they can get P9, but most likely, considering the pace of all the cars so far, I think Toro Rosso, their best position is probably going to be P11. That's not too bad though, if you ask me, because, the two McLarens and the two Renaults will have to start if they do get through, of course, unless it's, a Racing Point or something. If those teams get through to Q3, they've got to start on the soft compound tyre, and I can assure you that is not the tyre you want to use in the race. The ideal strategy for the race is start on the medium and go to the hard, or if, say, there are safety cars and luck plays into your hand, then you can start on the hard compound and go to the medium compound later on. Starting on the soft compound tyre is not the tyre you want to be on. So if Toro Rosso can put it P11 with their best car, or even, finish up 11th and 12th, then I think Toro Rosso are looking very good because their race pace is always strong, their tyre wear is consistent and good, and they'll be on the best strategy most likely for the Grand Prix. So Toro Rosso, I think, as long as they can put it in the top 12 with at least one car, I think they're looking absolutely fine for a points contending race tomorrow. Next up is Racing Point. Racing Point, as I've said before, brought some new upgrades, a big new upgrade, and once they actually get the best out of the car, they do have a good car this weekend, but only when they get the best out of the car. They run at the correct times in terms of, running soft tyres at the correct time of the session to see how quick they are compared to other people, not run the soft tyre like they did in practice too at the start of the session, and then not run that tyre again. But once they actually get the laps in at the same time other people are, they do have a good car. And I think Racing Point are going to be a dark horse today, and I think you'll be surprised, some of you, by Racing Point. I think Sergio Perez, hopefully he doesn't have a gearbox issue with after that, hit against the wall in the exit of turn 21, the penultimate corner, of course. I think he can absolutely be a top 10 runner, and Lance Stroll this weekend does actually look like a person that maybe, if he gets the lap together, could also be in the top 10. So Racing Point do have a good car at a track again that historically Racing Point have never really been that good at. So look out for Racing Point. They're going to surprise people, I think, and I think a top 10 qualifying position is probably what they're aiming for with at least one car, and I think that's what they should aim for. If they are a lot better, though, than I'm expecting, then maybe they can get both cars strongly in and even contend with McLaren. But most likely, I don't think that will happen. But yeah, Racing Point, still, though, they are looking good. And finally is Williams. And Williams are not too far away from the back end of the midfield. The back end of the midfield this weekend, of course, is Alfa Romeo and Haas. And yeah, I think Russell, like Hungary, if he can get that lap together in qualifying one at the end of the session, he could absolutely do it. He could absolutely, get into Q2. But it's going to require, other drivers messing up, those other teams not having a quick car. It is going to require quite a few things. I still think Russell will end up, qualifying or getting eliminated rather in Q1. But if he gets into Q2, then it's just further evidence around the circuit that really is a driver's circuit that Russell is going to be in the future a very, very good driver. I've thought this for a very long time. And I think this year, even though he hasn't scored as many points as Robert Kubica, he's absolutely bullied Kubica into leaving, basically. Yeah, Russell, I think, has been absolutely fantastic. And I think he'll show that again today in qualifying. But guys, with half an hour to go until qualifying gets underway, let me know in the live chat for the midfield, who do you think will do well and not so well for McLaren, Renault, Alfa, Haas, Toro Rosso, Racing Point, and even Williams? Where do you think they'll be, and who do you expect to be good and not so good? Before I come to you guys, though, I might as well just say what I think the pecking order in the midfield is. For me, it's McLaren, And then I would actually say Racing Point in 5th. I think Racing Point, again, once they get the lap together, I think they've got the pace to be the 2nd quickest midfield team. And then Renault after that. And then Toro Rosso, Alfa, Haas and Williams. That's what I think it is from P4 down to P10 in terms of teams. And yeah, let me know, in the chat, and I'll read out your comments in just a moment. Just to say, though, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, as we consistently do watch-alongs for every practice 2, qualifying and race, for every race weekend of 2019, and hopefully we're doing the same for 2020 as well. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there, or go to my homepage, subscribe and hit the notifications bell. And also don't forget to smash the like button for more content like this, and also does help out the channel with it, of course, growing. I'm going to quickly, guys, have a drink, and then I'll come to you guys in a moment. Right, let's see what you guys are saying about these midfield runners. Let me just check if I've got a super chat. No, I don't. Mostly an F1 fan. Where do you think it is most likely part of the track people might mess up? I think either the Anderson Bridge, that's what, turn 13, or the last corner where they all hit the wall. Well, that last corner is not the last corner, it is the penultimate corner, but I know what you mean by that. But it will be that penultimate corner, turn 21, the exit of turn 21 on the wall. Every year we've come here, that's been the wall. And also the wall that Valtteri Bottas hit in practice 1, which I think is turn 19, the exit of turn 19. Those 2 walls are the walls that, if you're going to hit the wall, it's going to be those ones. The other walls, other drivers have hit, but not as frequent as those 2. Those 2, because the cars, are being driven so aggressively by the drivers, and the drivers are trying to, widen the track for best speed, they end up clipping the wall or hitting the wall and breaking their cars. So, yeah, exit of turn 19 and exit of turn 21 walls, those will be the places where people will mess up. I understand what you mean by turn 13 because of that little fast right before you then turn left into that hairpin. Charles Leclerc did hit that, but most of the time drivers don't hit it because they're that good that they get that close to it but don't actually hit it at all. So yeah, it'll be exit of 19 and 21 for that. Andy Carmichael, has anyone got an idea if Hülkenberg has a seat for 2020? It's not confirmed. The only 2 seats available, I think, at the moment that he can realistically get into is the Alfa and the Williams. Alfa have said that they want to keep Giovinazzi, and Williams, they might get Hülkenberg, but I don't think they will. I think they'll go for the money and still good pace in Nicholas Latifi. So I think Hülkenberg is out of Formula 1. But I will say, even if he does leave Formula 1 at the end of 2019, don't think that he will be out of Formula 1 for very long, because you never know if a team, loses a driver because that driver retires, or they're struggling to find an option. Nico, I'm sure, will still remain in the world of Formula 1 in some form to, try and get a seat. I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest, if Nico was a test driver in 2020. In fact, I think he should be. I think he should probably try to be a test driver for a team like Renault, maybe. Because I don't think that's that bad of a job, and he'll be doing plenty of, work in the simulator back in Enstone, and will still be helping out the Renault team in its quest for glory. So I think, yeah, Nico is more likely going to get a test drive for 2020, or a test and development drive for 2020, rather than a race seat. He should get a race seat. We know that. It's Nico Hülkenberg. He's definitely good enough for a Formula 1 race seat, but in a similar way to Esteban Ocon, that's the way it is. The best drivers don't always get the chances in Formula 1. Formula 1 should be, at the moment, it should have the 20 best drivers, but we know that's not the case. There are drivers out there that could absolutely be better than other drivers in Formula 1, but, that's just the way it is. Right, let me read out some other comments. Rocky2717 says or asks, do you think Ferrari used higher engine mode to get on top of FP3, or is it their new upgrade? I'm gonna say at the moment the engine mode, because we've seen this before with Ferrari at a circuit where they haven't. We know they haven't got a good car, but they'll still end up topping practice 3. If you remember back to Baku, for example, I think Ferrari were faster by about a second, almost, to the next fastest car in practice 3 in Baku. And then, of course, in qualifying, they ended up a third of a second off pole position. So, practice 3 with Ferrari doesn't matter, because they've done this so many times, Ferrari, in 2019, where they'll show you great speed on the practice sessions, but when it comes to qualifying, when it matters, or the race, they fail to show the speed that they had in practice. And I think definitely Lewis Hamilton and the Red Bull team have a lot more to come, pace-wise, in qualifying. Brendan Colohan, it's about money and paid drivers. Yeah, it is. By the way, Astro Stevo, the top left, that's the timer until qualifying starts. And yeah, got what, 23 minutes to go. I'll get to my predictions for qualifying in just a moment. Right, let me find a couple more comments, and then we'll get to that predictions. Taslim Ahmed, what's wrong with Perez in Singapore? He's a bit erratic. Last year, he drove poorly around this circuit. He was really good in qualifying, but then in the race with Sirotkin and all that stuff, he really drove poorly. This has never been a great track for Perez. Normally, he will be around, say, P10, P11, but he's never P7, P8 or better than that at this circuit. He's never really been that special here. So, you know, Perez, he'll be there. He'll be there in the top 10, I think, but not very strong like he can be at other tracks. But, right, let me read out one final comment. And then we'll be getting to the predictions. Seki Hybris says turn 17 to turn 20 will be gone after 2021. Is that true? If you could post an article or something that confirms that, then let me know. And what was it? Racing Prodigy says Gunter. Sorry about my throat, by the way. He says how Gunter picked Grosjean over Hulkenberg. How will he live with himself? Yeah. I don't understand. I really don't understand why they went for Romain Grosjean. I don't get it. Nico is, at the moment, and in the last couple years, has clearly been the better driver. If they made this decision in 2016, 2015, 2017, I wouldn't have been that miffed about it, because Grosjean back then was actually a lot better and consistently good. But in the last 2 years, Romain has really dipped off and just become a very inconsistent, crashy type driver. But again, if this was 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said, you know what? No problem. Because I thought, you know, in 2016, I thought, honestly, Grosjean was better than Hulkenberg. But at the moment, you have to say Nico is clearly the better driver. And yeah, they don't have an excuse for picking Romain Grosjean. But now, it is time, guys, with 20 minutes to go until qualifying, to get into my predictions and what I think will happen today in qualifying in Singapore. Let me know, guys, in the live chat right now, who do you think will end up on pole position? 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th. And if you want to do a top 10 prediction, then go for it. I will probably do one as well. But yeah, let me know in the live chat, who do you think gets pole position and ends up in the top 3, and the rest of the field if you want to do that as well. But getting pole position, in my opinion, will be Lewis Hamilton, because Mercedes Still have, I think, the best car around this circuit in qualifying trim. It is still close with other teams, but I think they still have the best car in qualifying trim. And Lewis Hamilton, I think, is the best driver at this circuit. He does have an equal record with Sebastian Vettel at this circuit for poles and wins, but I think Lewis is better at this type of circuit. He likes this circuit, very much, and I think he kind of looks better on this circuit than Sebastian does at times. And I think he will get pole position. He looks so strong. He looked so strong in practice too, being as far ahead as his teammate as he was. So I think Lewis will be the man on pole position. If he does get pole, it'll be his 5th pole in Singapore, and he will then become the record holder for pole positions at this circuit. And Mercedes are going for their 4th pole position in Singapore. Their other poles here have been 2014, 2016, and of course 2018. In second place, I'm going for Max Verstappen. The reason I'm going for him is because also he is very good at this circuit, because it's a type of circuit that is, well, it's a driver's circuit. You can attack. You can really attack the corners and showcase your skill as a driver. And of course, Max Verstappen is one of the best on the grid, so that's why he's so good here. And also the Red Bull car, historically, ever since we came to Singapore in 2008, no matter what fight it's been in, midfield or top, they've always gone well here. They've been on a podium here at every race since 2009, I believe. Oh no, since 2010. So it just shows you how competitive Red Bull are at this type of circuit. But if Max does get pole here, it'll be his 2nd pole in his career and his 1st at Singapore, of course. And Red Bull going for their 1st ever pole position, or 1st pole, sorry, in Singapore since 2013, where Sebastian Vettel completely annihilated the field of all confidence by only doing one run that wasn't even that great and still ending up miles ahead back in the days where Red Bull were centuries ahead aerodynamically of any other team. So yeah, if he does get pole, it'll be the 1st time since then. And in P3, I'm going to go for Valtteri Bottas, only because really I think the car will give him the opportunity to finish in the top 3. I don't think pace-wise as a driver, he can really be that good today. But again, the car is good here, and I think the car will get him right there onto P3 on the grid. Maybe Valtteri can get closer to his teammate Lewis Hamilton. I hope he can, because he shouldn't be as far off as he has been so far this weekend, off his teammate. So hopefully, he can get onto, well, not to pole position, but, can get into the top 3. If he finishes in the top 3, I think that's a good enough position for Valtteri Bottas. But if he does somehow, by some miracle, get pole position of his 1st pole in Singapore, and Mercedes are going for their 2nd 1-2 in qualifying here at Singapore. Their last 1-2 at this circuit in qualifying was 2014, where they only just took pole from the 2 Red Bulls and the Ferrari of Fernando Alonso that day. So those are my top 3. And then P4, I'm going to go Alexander Albon. P5, I'll go Charles Leclerc. And then in P6, I will go for Sebastian Vettel. And then the P7 to P10, I'm going to go Sainz in P7 because he's so good at this circuit. P8, Lando Norris. P9, Daniel Ricciardo. And P10, Sergio Perez. So guys, let me know right now, with 15 minutes to go, who are you going for pole position, for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the rest of the field? Let me know, and I'll read out your comments in, right now. Let me just move on to that picture of Lewis Hamilton's Mercedes. Right, let's take a look. Lorenzo Bailey says, Bottas is poor. I don't rate him anymore. How can you be in the same machinery as Lewis for the past 3 years and not come close to winning a championship? Well, as I explained yesterday, Lewis Hamilton will make anyone look silly. So I don't think it's necessarily Valtteri being poor. I think it's more so Lewis being the best driver on the grid and being at his absolute best at the moment. So I think Valtteri actually is a really good driver. I think people would be very surprised. If you put Daniel Ricciardo in the same team as Valtteri Bottas, then I think in terms of qualifying, I think Valtteri could honestly out-qualify Daniel Ricciardo over the course of a season. He's that quick. is Valtteri. The biggest weakness with Valtteri Bottas is the races. He's not decisive enough in overtaking, and he's not quick enough in the races, and not good enough on his tyres. But in qualifying, he has very, very, very strong speed. So I think, he does deserve some credit because, this season he has out-qualified Lewis 5 times. And I think at Spa and Monza, he was basically equal with Lewis Hamilton. So I think Valtteri's done well this season. Right, let me look at some other comments. And by the way, Lorenzo Bailey said he didn't make Rosberg look silly. In 2015 he did. Rosberg was terrible in 2015 compared to Hamilton. Right, here we go. So Taslim Ahmed says Hamilton from Verstappen, Bottas, Albon, Leclerc, Seb. So same top 6 as me. Nicholas Kurban says Vettel, Hamilton, Verstappen. Josh 28 says Verstappen, Hamilton, Bottas. BM says Lewis, Bottas, Leclerc, Ricciardo in P4. That's a surprise. And Max Verstappen in P5. Astro Stevo, Hamilton, Bottas, Leclerc, Verstappen, Hulk in 5th. Katarina A. Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Albon, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Vettel, Hulkenberg. Lorenzo Bailey says Leclerc on pole from Hamilton, Verstappen, Vettel, Bottas, Albon, Sainz and Norris. Mr. Labman says Max for his top 3. Josiah Boateng, I can't read your last name there because it's too hard for me to pronounce. But he says Hamilton pole, Verstappen 2nd, Leclerc 3rd, Bottas 4th, Albon 5th, Vettel 6th, Norris 7th, Ricciardo 8th, Sainz in 9th, and Hulkenberg in 10th. Nicholas, oh no, I've already read that one. He said Vettel, Hamilton, Verstappen, of course. Super Vlogger Michael says Hamilton pole, Verstappen 2nd, Bottas 3rd, Albon 4th, Vettel 5th, and Charles Leclerc in 6th. Waltz or Volts, I don't know how you pronounce that unless it depends what country you're from. Waltz Chen says Max, Leclerc, Hamilton. Andy Carmichael says Leclerc, Hamilton, Bottas, Vettel, Verstappen. I think confidence is big on this track. It is, but also you need confidence in your car, and if you don't have that, then it is going to be tough. Chris says dig the text now, good addition, Shazza. Yeah. And don't worry, guys, I will be, all the graphics you see at the moment, for 2020, they will all be upgraded. Everything you see from me in 2019 will be improved upon for 2020. So, yeah, can't wait for that, but that's next year. Colin Hogenberg, Hamilton, Max Bottas. Let me find some other comments here. Mr. Labman makes a serious prediction this time and says Max, Hamilton, Albon. Let me look at some other comments here if I can find any. Astro Steve says disagree there. Sorry, Chaz. I reckon Danny Rick would blow Bottas away at Mercedes and challenge Hamilton much more. Yeah, in the races he would, but I'm saying in qualifying, Valtteri I think would put up a very strong fight because Daniel is definitely better in the races than he is in qualifying. And I think in qualifying trim, I think in the same car, Valtteri Bottas could absolutely be out-qualifying Ricciardo at least 10 times. I think that could happen. I'm not saying Ricciardo's bad, but I'm saying Valtteri's a lot better than people give him credit for. He's a lot better than people give him credit for. Because again, he is competing against Valtteri. He's competing against the best driver in Formula 1, and probably it might be the case in a couple of years. He's competing against the best driver in the history of Formula 1. So, what do you expect him to do? He's not a, Max Verstappen level driver. He was never supposed to be that. So I think he's done very well, to be honest. Dexter Hull says for his prediction, Max, Hamilton, Bottas, Albon, Leclerc, Vettel, Ricciardo. Move on to a different picture. There you go, of Sebastian Vettel. Let me find a few others. Andy says Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas. Danny Rick is a legend. Don't respect him like that. I wouldn't quite say a legend. He's good, very good driver, but he's not a legend. Someone's saying, imagine thinking Merc is not sandbagging. Absolutely, they are absolutely sandbagging. Well, they were in practice 3. When it comes to Q2, when they try to qualify probably on the medium compound, that's when you'll see some absolutely amazing lap times from that team. David Chimbaza says Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas, Albon, Leclerc, Vettel, Norris, Sainz, Hulk, Ricciardo. Let me find some other comments here. Ace Ray 24 says Max, Hamilton, Leclerc, Pepe Yakaman, I think it is. Says Hamilton, Leclerc, Bottas, Verstappen, Vettel, Albon, Ricciardo, Sainz, Hulkenberg, Norris. WDLC 1911 says Hamilton, Leclerc, Verstappen, Vettel, Bottas. Mr. Labman says Ferrari came from nowhere and will go nowhere. Emil's asking, what is the reason for Ferrari putting so much into practice but not performing through qualifying the race? I don't know, really. I think maybe it's a PR thing, trying to make it look like Ferrari can get pole, so, they get more viewers in Italy, maybe. I don't know. I don't really think there's a good enough reason for it. If you look at 2018, Ferrari were the team that historically, in that season, were sandbagging up until practice 3. On a Friday, Ferrari were hiding a lot of pace, and then on a Saturday, they'd go absolutely mental and get the front row. But this year, it's the opposite. Ferrari show everything in practice, and then they drop off in qualifying and the race. It's the complete opposite. So I don't really know why they do it. And if I was running a team, my team would be sandbagging a lot if I was running Ferrari. I would not be out there trying to push really hard. I would be making sure that I was hiding at least a second a lap from my car. In terms of fuel and engine mode, I would not be pushing that hard. Right. Lorenzo Bailey, the top 3 teams will surely do their Q2 runs on mediums. If they are fast enough, then yes, they will do that. But if they are not, then they'll have to do it on the soft tyres, which will be not big news, bad news for those teams on Sunday, because they'll drop off compared to the other teams that can do the medium tyre runs in the race. But yeah, the best strategy for the race is start on mediums and go to hard compound tyres. No doubt about that. Hello to Stella. Hamilton will take pole, says someone there. Do you think Red Bull will struggle to win the race? Asks Taslim Ahmed. I don't think they'll struggle. I think if they're going to win, they're going to need a couple things to really go right for them. One, they're going to have to probably get pole, because the record of pole position at this circuit is really good. If you're on pole, you've basically done 3/4 of the job. And they have to get the start right and get into the lead or maintain the lead if they do get pole position. So they won't struggle to win, but I think winning a race is tough. Don't get me wrong. Winning a race is tough for anyone, but it will be tough for them. But not, it won't be as tough as Austria was. Even though they won the Austrian Grand Prix, that was still a tough victory because they came back from so far on the grid. Or so far after the start of the race where Verstappen dropped down to like P8. So they'll be there for sure. They'll be there for sure. Anyway, move on to this final picture of a nice rear end of the Red Bull. The sexiest rear end in Formula 1. Let me look at some other comments here. Astro Stevo says, if my math is right, every driver from Gasly down is now mathematically eliminated from title winning contention, and every team from McLaren down already eliminated from the constructors too. I'll be honest, I don't I don't really look at who's in contention anymore like that, but you're probably right. You're probably right. Harith Zach says, yay, my home race might be a checkerboard. Ferrari Merc for first 4 positions on the grid. Yeah, we'll see in that. Yeah, great that it's your home race. And right, I'll find one final comment, then we'll get to getting into qualifying. Let me just look at the final couple comments here. Caldini, has Ferrari found pace? Just saw highlights of P3, practice 3. I don't think so. I don't think so. And I think Ferrari know that the other teams were not pushing as hard. But I think now it's time to really get into qualifying because we've got just under 4 minutes to go. Now, before we get into the session, I need to let new people know what we do for Watchalong. So, of course, I cannot show live video footage because that'd be breaking copyright law and my channel will be took down in about 1 second. So I don't do that. What I will do is show a slideshow of pictures, one every 4 minutes once qualifying gets underway. I will show that, again, once every 4 minutes, and I will provide a running radio style commentary of what is going on. So if you can't watch qualifying today, but you can listen to me taking you through it, then don't worry, I will take you through the entire session from start to finish, as the F1 intro is now playing on my screen. I'll also, if you are watching the watch along, I'll have a running order running along the bottom of the screen so you can see who is in what position. I'll make sure to update it as much as possible. And also, one more important thing, I do have, with the device I watch it on, which is an Apple TV box, I have about a 45-second to 1 minute delay with my F1 feed compared to you guys if you're watching it on TV normally. So if you want to sync up, then pause your device for about 45 seconds, 50 seconds, something like that, and then press play again, and you should be around about synced up with where I am. But if not, then no problem. And if you can't watch anyway, then of course you can just listen along and enjoy the session. As we have 2 minutes to go until qualifying in Singapore. And qualifying in Singapore is one of the best qualifying sessions of the season because the drivers are pushing immensely hard around a circuit that is so physically tough, mentally tough, to stay concentrated, and in terms of your skills, it really does challenge the drivers because the corners are so difficult, the walls are so close, and it's such a long lap. This circuit, this is the longest track, or one of the longest tracks, by the way, on the calendar. I don't think it's the longest. I think Spa's still the longest. But considering it's a street track and it's so long and it's similar to Spa in length, that is what makes it so tough, and that's why the drivers love Singapore, and that's why I never want Singapore to go, because one, it's a great race, a great looking race for Formula One, and the drivers love it, and it really is a tough race for them, and that's what we want to see. We want to see the drivers really having a tough time of it. And by the way, according to Pirelli, the medium compound is 1.2 seconds slower per lap than the soft tyre, so the top teams need to be about 2 seconds quicker than the midfield in qualifying today to be able to qualify on the mediums, because if they qualify on the mediums and they're only a second quicker on soft tyres, then they're going to be under threat. They're really going to be under threat. As qualifying gets underway in just a moment, I'll get the timer ready. Of course, qualifying 1 is 18 minutes long. And then qualifying 2 is 15 minutes, and qualifying 3 is 12 minutes. And qualifying 1 will be underway in just a moment around one of the best venues, not only in Formula 1, but in the world. And there you go, remaining in Q1. I'll get the timer up as soon as the session gets underway. And yeah, it is an absolutely brilliant venue for Formula 1. And by the way, thank you there to Caldini for donating. I'm not sure what currency that is, but donating, I think $5 that might be, Australian dollars, I'm not sure. But thank you for doing that, really do appreciate it. And if anyone else wants to donate, of course I'm not going to rush you into it, but if you do, it does help out the channel, of course, buying new equipment, which I am currently looking for. So if you want to, then go ahead, but I'm not going to force you, it's your decision completely. As The Racing Point boys look as though they're ready already to let Sergio Perez get out on circuit. And he, of course, hit the wall on the exit of the penultimate corner in practice 3 and missed out on about half of the session. So he'll be keen to get out there and, see how the car is and get a lap in and not make a mistake this time. And hopefully he does not make a mistake. As Lewis Hamilton is currently on my TV, sat in his car, I believe. Now is Max Verstappen. And he will definitely be right there for the fight for pole. No doubt about it. As he's currently blowing, I think, some cold air into his face. Because obviously Singapore is an immensely hot race. It's similar to races like Malaysia in terms of the just sheer heat and humidity that we get. And that's also what makes it so tough. As Daniel Kvyat, I believe, there on the TV is being strapped into his Toro Rosso. And now we get to look at Carlos Sainz, a driver that is very good around this circuit. He's always been, in qualifying trim, a top 10 runner. As qualifying 1 is going to get underway in 5 seconds. 3, 2, 1. And there you go. Qualifying 1 is underway. Let me get the running order up. By the way, this is not the live running order. This is the running order from my last watch along, which of course was the practice 2 stream yesterday. And let me now get up the image slideshow. If it ever, blocks out the car a bit, I'll make sure to adjust it. But yeah, we've got 18 minutes to go. Or now 17 and a half to go in qualifying 1. Let's see who comes out first. No one at the moment. As we're currently looking on the TV at Sebastian Vettel in his Ferrari, closing his eyes, imagining the lap. Something that Ayrton Senna pioneered. As Ferrari don't look like they're particularly in a rush to get out on track. I'm surprised, though, that Sergio Perez or Daniel Kvyat have not come out because they lacked running in practice 3. And I would be getting out there, to be honest, to try and get a lap in, an early banker, and see how the car is. But that's not the case at the moment. And we now have a car on the track. And it is Robert Kubica. Robert Kubica in the Williams, someone who is going to be absolutely at the back. Even though the Williams car is probably closer to the midfield this weekend, Robert is always at the back. As his teammate George Russell is about to come out as well. Williams are going to get the first laps on the board. Maybe not. Kimi Räikkönen now comes out in the Alfa Romeo. And now his teammate Giovinazzi. Here comes now Sergio Perez in the Racing Point. Hopefully his car is okay. And now comes Lance Stroll. And now comes George Russell. Of course, Williams are right next to the pit exit, so they can just come right on out. So we've got 6 cars on circuit, all on an out lap, and hopefully we'll get to see what they can do for their first runs. Valtteri Bottas coming out straight away. That's a surprise. Normally Mercedes wait, and now here comes Lewis Hamilton as well. That is surprising, as Magnussen is now out. Now here comes Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris now comes out on circuit. Now Romain Grosjean. And we're currently looking at, who is that? That's a Williams. I think of Robert Kubica. Who else have we got on track? Carlos Sainz has just come out on circuit. Oh, now Sebastian Vettel has come out on circuit. He's got both Ferraris and both Mercedes on track. Here comes Max Verstappen, as we're now currently looking at, I believe, the Racing Point of Sergio Perez. And now we're taking a look at Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari coming down the main DRS straight between turn 5 and turn 7. And Sebastian is very good here, no doubt about it. This is probably his best track in Formula 1. But with the way he's been as of late, confidence-wise, as someone very rightly said earlier, you need confidence here. Sebastian's confidence is not exactly sky high. So it is difficult to say whether he will be great today. We'll have to see. Hopefully he can respond today in qualifying, because if he gets out qualified by Leclerc at Vettel's best track, then I think that's a sign of the times and sign of where Sebastian's career is going. As Kimi Räikkönen and Robert Kubica, by the way, went back into the pits for some reason. Don't know why. But the two Alphas have now started their first flying lap in qualifying one. Sergio Perez has now started his first lap of qualifying. Now Stroll, as we're currently looking at Carlos Sainz in the McLaren coming into the final sector of the track on his outlap. Valtteri Bottas now starts his lap, so does now Russell. And in a moment will be Lewis Hamilton, no, it'll be Magnussen starting his lap. And now, yeah, Lewis Hamilton now starts his lap. So we'll see what they can do for their first times of the session, as Carlos Sainz backs up a lot now coming into turn 20 and 21. As now the two Haas's on a lap. And we've now got Albon, Verstappen, as Leclerc starts a lap. Albon, Verstappen, Vettel, Sainz and Kvyat on an outlap as Sebastian Vettel starts a lap. And here comes Carlos Sainz. So let's see what Carlos Sainz can do in the sparking McLaren. Beautiful looking McLaren this year. Comes through turn 1, 2 and 3. Car looking good. Comes through the exit of turn 3, through 4, which is not a corner. Turn 5, very fast corner. And the McLaren looks pretty good to me. And by the way, the two Mercedes cars are on medium tyres. That's interesting. As Kimi Räikkönen sets the first lap time of the day. Antonio Giovinazzi now goes P1. But yeah, the only drivers at the moment on mediums are Hamilton and Bottas. As Carlos Sainz now coming into the turn 10 left-hander. Looking good. As Valtteri Bottas goes P1 on the mediums. And Carlos Sainz now comes through the Anderson Bridge and now comes into turn 13. And the McLaren does look nailed to this track. It looks like a very good car. As at the moment it's Bottas from Giovinazzi, Raikkonen, Perez, Stroll, Magnussen, Russell. Bottas is P1 and now Hamilton goes P2. Only a tenth behind. Charles Leclerc goes P1. 6 tenths faster. But again, the two Mercedes drivers are on medium tyres. So they can go a lot faster than Bottas and Hamilton. As Carlos Sainz comes through turn 18 where he's hit the wall there before. When he was back at Toro Rosso. Comes through turn 20 and 21. Now comes into the entry of the final corner. And Carlos Sainz, where will he go? He goes P4 ahead of Sebastian Vettel on the same compound of tyres. That's a good lap. Here comes Max Verstappen. He goes P2, half a second down on Charles Leclerc. And Alex Albon goes P7. Slightly behind Sebastian Vettel, I believe. Yes, about a tenth and a half. Here comes Daniel Kvyat to the line. Goes P9. P9 for Daniel Kvyat. The last 4 runners that haven't set a lap is the 2 Renaults, Pierre Gasly and Robert Kubica. Here's a replay of Stroll clipping the wall on the exit of turn 19. And then does he clip it on the exit of 21? I think he does. Here we go. And yeah, that's going to require a check of the car for him. And hopefully his car is okay. As we're now currently looking at Pierre Gasly, who's about to start his first run of the session. Pierre Gasly not known for being great here, but let's see what he can do. As he now heads down into turn 1 on the soft compound of tyre. And looking alright so far, nothing dramatic. As he comes through turn 4 into turn 5. Car sparking away. That's the one thing I love about Singapore is the sparks look great around this circuit. It really makes the Formula 1 car look active like it should do. As Gasly does a not too bad first sector, to be honest. As he now comes through the turn 8, turn 9. Now comes into turn 10. How is his line through there? Not too bad. Didn't exactly run right into the curb, but that's all right. And Raikkonen is on another lap, and so is Antonio Giovinazzi. As Pierre Gasly comes through turn 13, opens the DRS on now the third DRS straight at this circuit. And at the end of the middle sector, he's faster than Magnussen to get out the drop zone, but he's not really that quick at the moment, Pierre Gasly. As he now comes through turn 17 and now into turn 18 under this little bridge. Turn 19 looks fine, and out to 20 and 21. Very difficult chicane this is, and he does not hit the wall. And now comes through the final corner, turn 22, and he runs all four wheels off at the exit, but he goes P7. Very good final sector. The Toro Rosso looking good in the final sector. Raikkonen does another lap and stays P12. Antonio Giovinazzi does another lap and goes P10. Antonio looking pretty good. How about that? How about that? The two Renaults are currently on a lap. So once they complete their first run, I will then update the order. Sergio Perez goes P12. And talking of the Renaults, here comes one. Hülkenberg. And not that far behind him is Daniel Ricciardo on their first run in qualifying. Stroll now goes up to 13th. And Hülkenberg comes through turn 13. Now, through the exit, opens the DRS, and what is his middle sector like? 1.2 off Charles Leclerc, so not too bad at the moment. That's not too bad of a middle sector. Ricciardo's done a good middle sector. He's about 2.5 tenths up on Nico Hülkenberg. As Hülkenberg now comes through turn 18, now through turn 19, gets his rear a bit skittish there. Now through 20 and 21. Does he hit the wall? No, he doesn't. Gets nowhere near it. Not pushing that hard. And comes to the final corner. And Nico Hülkenberg goes P10. And yeah, that's not too bad. Daniel Ricciardo, though, now goes P10. As Sebastian Vettel now goes second. And now, let me update the order with 7 minutes to go in qualifying 1. So it's Charles Leclerc P1, Sebastian Vettel P2. Is this Monza or Singapore? You may be asking. It is Singapore, but again, the Mercedes drivers, both on the mediums, and the mediums are a lot slower than the soft tyre around this circuit. So hold your horses before anyone makes any assumptions. Carlos Sainz is in 6th. It's Bottas 4th, Hamilton 5th before him. And then, yes, Sainz in 6th. Gasly is 7th. Albon is 8th. That's not great for Albon. He's half a second slower than Verstappen and behind Pierre Gasly. That is quite bad for Albon so far. But, of course, it's only qualifying 1. As long as he gets through to qualifying 2, then nothing else matters. Norris is P9. Ricciardo is P10. Nico Hülkenberg is P11. So Renault looking okay at the moment, but they will need to do another lap because they're only 0.3 of a second clear of the drop zone. Antonio Giovinazzi is P12. He's looking pretty good considering the car's performance, and his teammate is Kimi Raikkonen. Daniel Kvyat, P13. He has to improve on that. He can go a lot quicker, surely. He is almost a second slower than Gasly so far. And then it's Perez 14th. Stroll 15th. And then it's Raikkonen, Grosjean, Magnussen, Russell, and Kubica. Russell is about 7 tenths of a second from the drop zone, or getting out of the drop zone. So I don't think Russell is going to do it, but he might be able to out-qualify a Haas. So that is a possibility, so we'll look out for that. As we are now 5 minutes to go in qualifying 1, and that is your current order. Scoring for life. Why is my account blocked? I don't know. You'll have to ask the moderators. DAP177 has donated $2. Thank you very much for that. He asks Stroll to Q1. At the moment, it looks as though that could happen, and then asks, are you streaming on F1 TV? No, I'm not. I'm watching the session on my Apple TV box, which connects to Now TV, which of course connects to Sky, or Sky Sports F1. So that's how I'm watching it. And anyway, in the UK, you can't watch F1 TV for current sessions, which is really frustrating because that's what I would be having if they allowed it in the UK for current sessions and not only for old races and data. But there you go, that's the way it is. As the two Mercedes cars are the only cars on circuit right now on an outlap. I don't know what tyres they're on. I'm going to assume they're on soft tyres. Maybe the medium tyre run was just a sighter. As we're currently looking at Max Verstappen with 3.5 minutes to go in qualifying 1. And yet here comes, and yet they are on the soft tyres, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas. So I think now we'll see them go P1 and P2 as long as they don't make an error. Because they're only, what, 3/4 of a second off on tyres that are probably a second or 1.2 seconds slower than the softest compound. So I think they are going to go P1 and P2 in just a moment. And here comes Valtteri Bottas, I think it is. And he will now get on with his second run in qualifying 1 on the soft compound tyres. As McLaren just comes out on track. And now all the cars are coming out to, of course, do their final run of the session to get into the second part. As Valtteri Bottas now heading down the main DRS straight down to turn 7. And his first sector is 0.5 tenth up. That's a very, very strong first sector for Bottas, considering that sector is where Ferrari normally kill everyone else because it is mostly about power in that sector. Lewis Hamilton has not done that fast of a first sector compared to Bottas. He's about a couple tenths off his teammates so far. As Valtteri comes through turn 11, turn 12. Now into turn 13. And now opens the DRS. And his sector time is about 4 tenths up on Charles Leclerc so far. So yeah, he's about to go a lot quicker than Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari. Yes, the Ferraris did the laps earlier on, but still, if the Mercedes did their soft tyre runs earlier, then they would have gone P1 and P2, I'm pretty sure, as Valtteri Bottas comes through turn 20 and turn 21. Car looking very, very good. And he comes through to the line, and Valtteri goes P1 by 7 tenths of a second. And Lewis Hamilton now comes to the line, comes through the final corner, now comes to the line, and Lewis Hamilton goes P2, 1/4 of a second off. That's surprising. Valtteri so far looking good. So let me quickly update that before everyone else goes much faster in their fight to get through to qualifying 2. As a Haasler, Kevin Magnussen starts his final run. So it's Bottas P1, then Hamilton P2. And then Leclerc P3. As Magnussen gets a cheeky little slipstream from Lewis Hamilton. And comes down to turn 7. And his first sector is not his best first sector, but it is up on Stroll so far. And yeah, it's Leclerc P3, Vettel P4, and Max Verstappen in P5. As Magnussen comes into turn 10, he ran slightly wide, I thought. 11 and 12 looks not great, but not terrible. You've watched a certain TV show, you'll know where that's from. As Magnussen comes to the end of the middle sector, and he's still not improving on this lap as the timer is now over. So the checkered flag is now waving. Who will get into Q2 out of Raikkonen, Grosjean, Magnussen, Russell, Kubica? We'll see. As Magnussen comes into turn 18, now turn 19. and into turn 20 and 21. I don't think this is going to be good enough. I just don't think Kevin has the speed. This is not one of his best circuits. Kevin Magnussen comes to the line, and Kevin Magnussen, no, he does. He goes P12. Very good final sector. Now comes Nico Hülkenberg, who goes P7. So very good final sector there for Magnussen. Lando Norris comes to the line and goes P6. By the way, Alex Albon is not on circuit and dropping like a stone. Red Bull better have got this right, as Raikkonen goes P12 now. Antonio Giovinazzi goes P11, still faster than Kimi Raikkonen. Pierre Gasly goes, or stays P9. What can Romain Grosjean do? P18 only, that's poor. Lance Stroll is out in P16. Daniel Ricciardo is P12. Daniel Kvyat comes to the line and stays in 15th. And if Perez can improve, then Kvyat is out. Let's see Perez now. Into the final corner. And Sergio Perez, will he get into Q2? Yes, he will. P14. So Daniel Kvyat is out. So out in qualifying 1 is Kvyat, Stroll, Grosjean, Russell and Kubica. And ultimately, in the end, the Williamses were nowhere near quick enough to be able to get through or even compete with the other drivers. So let me quickly update the order. So Norris got up to P6. The top 5 are unchanged. Norris is P6. Carlos Sainz is P7. And they took away the order, so I can't see the rest of it. But I can do the drop zone order. So Daniel Kvyat is 16th. Lance Stroll is 17th. That's disappointing for Racing Point. They should be a lot better than that. 18th, Romain Grosjean. Again, why did they keep him on? I do not know. And then getting through, of course, is Bottas, Hamilton, Leclerc, Vettel, Verstappen, Norris, Sainz, Albon. Let me just update the rest of it. I don't know the actual order, but I'll just put the names in of people that have got through. Hülkenberg and Ricciardo are through. You've got Gasly, who's through. Perez and Magnussen are through. And Raikkonen and Giovinazzi are also through to qualifying 2. Yep, that's it for qualifying 1, and qualifying 2 will be underway in a 2 or 3 minutes time. Let me just quickly, guys, as you guys can tell, I do have a sore throat. Let me quickly have a drink so it is better for the rest of the session. By the way, just seeing a replay of Russell there, that's why he didn't improve his time. Into turn 7, went wide and blew the lap. So he could have competed, but he blew the lap. That's a shame. But there you go. That's his fault. As we're now seeing replays of Lance Stroll hitting the wall a couple times. But let's see what you guys are saying. In the chat. Let me see if I've got any more super chats. No, I don't. Albon, not impressive. Yeah, so far that's not really that great, is it, from Alex Albon? Half a second off and behind a couple of midfield runners, even though he didn't run at the end, but still. Not that great, if you ask me, for Alex Albon. Hopefully, though, he can improve. By the way, though, and we're seeing a replay of it with Anthony Davidson on Sky F1. If you run wide at the final corner on the exit right before the finish line, surely that should be a lap time deletion. Because the drivers only go out there because they're trying to carry that much speed through the final corner, you know, to get a great lap time. So I don't understand why lap times are not being deleted at that point of the circuit. Pierre Gasly clearly ran over it. He should be having his lap time that he did that on deleted. No doubt about it. It's clear track extending, but of course the FIA are as consistent as Haas's qualifying to race performances. Right, let me find some other comments. Faust says, I really hope Haas and Grosjean prove us all wrong. By the way, to the person saying I'm listening in Bulgaria and saying thank you, no problem. Hopefully you are enjoying the session and enjoying the watch along. And let me now get the text ready for qualifying 2. Remaining in Q2, as Q2 will be underway in a moment. And it's going to be interesting, guys, to see what tyres the top teams go for. Mercedes ran mediums in their first run of qualifying 1. So maybe they'll be going for soft tyres for their, for the tyres they're going to start on for the race. But again, the ideal tyre to start on is the medium. So it's going to be interesting to see what the teams do. I think you will get a couple people out there trying the medium. No one will try the hard compound because that is dead slow when it comes to qualifying. But in the race tomorrow, that'll be a tyre that will be used a lot. That's why they're not using it, because they want to use it in the race. As currently looking down at the party life going on in Singapore. And I have to say, this city looks like the city from Blade Runner. Very similar in the way it looks. And it's a great looking city. And hopefully the session is underway in just a moment. And it is. I've just missed the syncing up point though. So I'll do that in just a moment. Of course, again, as I said earlier, 15 minutes long is qualifying 2. And this is going to be good, I think. I think we are in for a good session here. Because the midfield are very close. And it's going to be separated really down to the drivers, I think, in that midfield because of how close the cars in the midfield are. So definitely watch out for the battle at the end of qualifying 2. It's going to be so close to get into the top 10. Even though not necessarily being in the top 10 for tomorrow is a great thing, because of course if you start outside the top 10 you can qualify or start the race on whatever tyre you want to. As I'll sync up the timer right now, so there you go, 14 minutes left in qualifying 2 and nobody at the moment is on the circuit, so we are currently just sat waiting to see who comes out. And we do now have a car coming out, and it is Valtteri Bottas on soft compound tyres, and then it is Lewis Hamilton on soft compound tyres. So Mercedes are not taking a risk, and they are going to try and start on the fastest tyre available. And here comes out Charles Leclerc and Lando Norris and Pierre Gasly. I wonder if Red Bull do actually have the pace, because if they don't, then this is a very disappointing weekend so far. Surely Red Bull are, holding back performance. Surely. They're a lot quicker than they've appeared so far today. Sebastian Vettel, Carlos Sainz, Nico Hülkenberg, Pierre Gasly, Sergio Perez now on circuit. And now the two Alphas of Giovinazzi and Raikkonen, and Perez and Ricciardo on circuit. By the way, for Stella asking in the chat about Nightbot, Nib is in control of that, and of course Nib is not here at the moment, so he, once he turns up, he'll be able to, get Nightbot to take control of the chat, Thanos style. But by the way, just to let you guys know, he will be around tomorrow for the race watch along. And I'll update you guys as to when we'll be live tomorrow for that. But anyway, back into qualifying. Lewis Hamilton is now coming through turn 15 and 16 now on his out lap. He's about to start his lap very soon. Valtteri Bottas will be the first person to get his lap underway. Bottas now is coming through turn 20 and 21 very slowly. And now Valtteri gets on with it and starts his first run in qualifying 2. And Lewis Hamilton now comes through the final corner and gets his lap underway. So let's see what Lewis Hamilton can do. Does he have the pace to beat Valtteri Bottas today? I think he does, but he hasn't shown it so far in qualifying. Let's see what he can do. As he comes through turn 3, turn 4, now into turn 5. And now opens the DRS on the main DRS straight and goes down to turn 7 through turn 6, which is just a kink. Not in the wet though. And clocks 316 kilometers an hour down into that zone. And has not done a faster first sector than Valtteri. I wonder if Valtteri has less wing on his car, because Valtteri has been quicker in the first sector than Lewis quite a lot. As Lewis now coming through turn 10, 11, now into 12, throwing the car about, now into turn 13. As Valtteri does a 103.9 for the middle sector, what can Lewis Hamilton do for the middle sector? He does a 104.0. It says purple, but he definitely went slower. So I don't understand why it's saying that. As Lewis Hamilton now comes through, turn 16, turn 17, gets very close to the wall on the exit 17, now into 18. As Valtteri Bottas, now we're seeing the Red Bull starting a lap. Oh no, we're seeing Valtteri Bottas coming to the line and doing a 137.1. Lewis Hamilton, what can he do? He comes to the line and goes P2. The timing, it now goes P1. The timing currently for this session is all over the place. They're clocking it at the wrong points. Charles Leclerc comes to the line and he goes P1 by a 10th. Do Ferrari really have the pace? We'll see. As Sebastian Vettel gets so close to the wall on the exit of the penultimate corner. Now comes through the final corner, looking into the eyes of the four-time world champion. He comes to the line and goes P4. Lando Norris is P5 on a very good lap. He's only 6/10 off Charles Leclerc in P1. That's a very strong time. Gasly does a 38.6. That's a horrible time. That is a surprising turn of events that Charles Leclerc's P1, but now we can see what Max Verstappen can do. As here comes Sergio Perez through the final corner. What will Perez do for his first lap? He goes P9, 38.7. Those lap times are not very quick. Kimi Raikkonen comes to the line. He goes P10 on a 39.1. Giovinazzi goes much faster on a 38.6. Daniel Ricciardo goes P7 on a 38.3. Max Verstappen goes P3, a 10.5 down on Charles Leclerc. Alex Albon goes P7, 8/10 down on his teammate. That's still poor. And behind Lando Norris. That's poor from Albon. But everyone has set a time with 8.5 minutes to go in qualifying 2. So let me now update the order. So it is Charles Leclerc P1, Lewis Hamilton P2. I've seen a replay of Raikkonen hitting a wall there on the entry to turn, or the exit of turn 14. That might have done some damage. We'll have to see. But it is currently Charles Leclerc in P1, Lewis Hamilton P2, Max Verstappen P3, Vettel P4. No, it's Bottas P4, sorry. And then Vettel P5. And then it is Lando Norris in 6th with a lap time that is only 6/10 off Charles Leclerc's P1. That's a very strong time. And if that's what the McLaren is capable of, then McLaren are looking really good. Really good. Yeah, Norris is 6th. Albon is 7th. Carlos Sainz is in P8. He needs to improve his time. Carlos Sainz can't be that far off his teammate, considering he is normally better around this circuit. Daniel Ricciardo is 9th. And Nico Hülkenberg is 10th. So that's who's in the... has Giovinazzi got some damage there? I don't think so. So that's who's in the top 10. In the drop zone, needing to get out with 7 minutes to go, is Antonio Giovinazzi in P11. Pierre Gasly is P12. Sergio Perez is P13. Kimi Raikkonen is P14, and then Kevin Magnussen is miles off in 15th place. The Haas is the worst in the midfield. I think we can absolutely say that now. But yeah, 6.5 minutes left, and we have a long way to go to see who will get eliminated in the, I guess, the shootout for the midfield. This is basically the midfield's version of Q3 for the top teams. So we'll see. We'll see who gets through and who does not. And as we currently take a slight break from the action, just to say again, don't forget to subscribe for more content like this, guys, as I'll be live for the race watch along tomorrow at 12 PM UK time. The reason I'll be live then is because the race starts at 1 PM UK time, not 2 like it did for many European races. So don't forget to join us for that and subscribe for that content coming up. Bottom right of the screen, you can subscribe there and hit the notifications bell as well. And as well, don't forget to hit the like button for more content like this, and it really does help out the channel in terms of it growing. And subscribe again because we consistently do practice 2, qualifying and race watch-alongs for every race in 2019, and 2020 will be doing the same probably as well. As I believe Kimi Raikkonen has some damage to his front wing there. Or maybe the front suspension, I don't know. But with 5 minutes to go, Raikkonen is in trouble. He's P14 and half a second slower than his teammate. And that, of course, is not good enough for Kimi Raikkonen. He should be beating his young teammate, his rookie teammate, basically. And that is, yeah, not good enough. But Antonio, I have to say, though, is doing very well. To be that far ahead of Raikkonen and to be only at the moment a 1/10 of a second off of getting into Q3 in an Alpha car that this weekend is not that good. That's a strong performance by Antonio. And again, he is showing that he does have the potential. He just needs time to develop it. And I think he does deserve time at Alfa Romeo for 2020. As we are currently looking at Lewis Hamilton in his car on my TV with 4 minutes to go, and he's about to come out on track. Now, the reason the drivers come out a lot earlier on track than they do at a track like Monza for their outlaps is because, of course, it takes just over 90 seconds to do a lap, a hot lap. So the outlap is going to be 2 to 2.5 minutes. So that's why they leave so early on for their final run, as all the cars are now coming out onto the track. Maybe not Kimi Raikkonen, but I think everyone is. Charles Leclerc is, Lewis Hamilton is, Bottas is, Vettel is, Sainz is, Ricciardo is, Perez is, so is Antonio Giovinazzi. And who else is coming out? Max Verstappen, Lando Norris, Alex Albon, Hulkenberg still in the pits for some reason. With 3 minutes to go. As that is, I think that's Hamilton there behind Leclerc on the outlap. It is. Now the top runners will not be trying, I think, to set another time. I know they're on the soft tyres anyway. But they don't want to burn these tyres if they're going to use them for the first run in qualifying 3. So they'll probably do a sighter lap. Maybe they'll do an actual proper hot lap, but it will be a sighter for the first run in Q3. As Charles Leclerc there passes a McLaren, I think, and then Lewis Hamilton gets stuck behind. And Lando Norris is now out on circuit. The only drivers in the pits at the moment. F1 is now out on the circuit. All 15 drivers are on track with just over 2 minutes to go in this session, and we are in for a show, ladies and gentlemen. We're in for a better show for the end of Q3, or for Q3 in general, but we're in for a good one here as Sebastian Vettel is just coming to the end of his outlap. Now looking at Sergio Perez. slowly touring on his outlap. And who will be the first person to start their lap? I don't know, but it will be coming up soon. As all the cars now slowing down so they don't get stuck in traffic. You do not want a tow, trust me, around this circuit. As Sebastian Vettel starts his lap. Now does Valtteri Bottas, then Lewis Hamilton, and then it'll be Charles Leclerc. And now all the cars slow up at the end of the outlap, and now Sergio Perez will go for it, throws it into the final corner, and Sergio Perez now starts his lap. Not that great of a start to his hot lap. He should have been a lot quicker to that, but there you go. And now Magnussen starts his lap, and Perez gets on with it. Can Sergio Perez, who's not had the smoothest weekend, who's currently P13, can he get into the top 10? If he can, it'd be great for Racing Point going forward for the rest of the season and for tomorrow as well. As Perez, half a tenth off Hulkenberg in the first sector. Now comes through turn 8. Almost hits the wall, but that's just the way the corner is. Turn 9. Gets very close to the wall. Oh, very close to the wall. He almost clipped it. That was so close. Cutting it very fine, and that's how you got to do it around Singapore. As the timer is about to come to an end. As now everyone is on a lap. Perez through turn 13. Exits that corner. Gets close to the exit wall again. And the timer is now over. So the session is, well, the checkered flag is gone, but the laps have not been completed as Sebastian Vettel gives P1 and a 136.7. Sergio Perez now comes through. Turn 17. Now into turn 18. And now comes through. Turn 19. Charles Leclerc goes back to P1. And here comes Sergio Perez through the final corner. Can Perez get into Q3? No, he can't. He's in P11. He had a poor final sector. Perez is out. Magnussen also out in P15. Terrible run. Carlos Sainz improves his time but stays P8. Ricciardo stays P9. Antonio Giovinazzi does not improve his lap really at all. No, he doesn't, and stays P12. That's disappointing because he could have got through to the top 10. Here comes Pierre Gasly, and Pierre Gasly goes or stays P13. Can Kimi Raikkonen get in? No, P14. So everyone who was in the drop zone is out. So, let me first actually just do the text to say that Q2 is over. And eliminated from qualifying 2 is Sergio Perez in P11. Antonio Giovinazzi is P12, but he did well because he outqualified Kimi Raikkonen, and that is a positive. Pierre Gasly is P13, and then Raikkonen 14th, Magnussen 15th. And then the top 10 is Leclerc, Vettel, Hamilton, then Max Verstappen. And you've got to hope, if you're a Mercedes or Red Bull fan, that they have more to give. Because Ferrari look as though their upgrade is actually working, because this is not a expected turn of events. Let me just put it that way. And then P5 is Valtteri Bottas, and then it's Norris, Albon, Sainz, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, I believe. There you go. Qualifying 2 is over, and now it is time for qualifying 3 in just a moment. Let me just hide these people who are posting links annoyingly. There you go. And if there is any moderators out there, if you could help, get rid of the links, that'd be much appreciated. And just getting rid of some now. Yeah, that is the it. That is the end of qualifying 2 and qualifying 3 will be underway in probably 3 or 4 minutes time. Let me just hide these people that are posting links. And yeah, let me get everything ready for that. And again, as I said earlier, qualifying 3 is 12 minutes long, and it is the real show of the weekend, is qualifying in Singapore and Q3, because everyone puts everything on the line to give it everything to get that pole position, or to, you know, get at the front of the midfield. And again, if you are a Mercedes, Lewis Hamilton or Max Verstappen fan, you've got to be hoping that Ferrari can be caught, because at the moment Ferrari look pretty good. But again, it's not over yet. Not over till the fat lady sings. Right, let me just take a look at some other comments if I can. Astro Stevo says, don't think Vettel will win anything this year unless it's the most spins, crashes, worst driver awards. Yeah, that's, well, a possibility. As for some reason we're looking at Hamilton and Leclerc on their outlaps, replay from Q2. And yet both Renaults are in, Astro Stevo. That is correct. That's good for them. That is good. They're looking better this weekend than I thought they would be. And I think they didn't think they'd be this competitive with, you know, teams like McLaren, Toro Rosso, you know, teams like that. So I think Renault are, so far, they've got to be happy with they've got to be happy with how things are going. But let me just adjust this picture a bit, and I'll get the text ready, because Q3 will be underway in probably 2 minutes from now. And there you go. So I'll get the timer up as soon as the session gets underway and I can sync it up. Seki Hybrid says Ferrari long run pace looks hideous. On the soft tyre it was. They were 1.2 seconds on average slower. But on the mediums they were only 0.3 slower. So clearly, and well, it's been the case this season. It's not really a surprise. When they're on the softest tyre, Ferrari for the race struggle a lot. That's not a surprise. As we're currently looking on the screen at Charles Leclerc. Now we're looking at Valtteri Bottas on the TV. Kurt Bormann, where has Ferrari found this pace? Where was this pace at Hungary? On Mercedes sandbagging again? We'll have to wait until the end of qualifying to say, you know, who's sandbagging. At the moment, it looks as though Ferrari do have the pace, but, you know, what if Red Bull and Mercedes have been running the engine in a lot leaner of a mode? We don't know. They might be pushing as hard as possible. We just don't know. And that's the great thing going into this session now, is we just do not know, you know, what's going to happen. Ferrari might have the pace, but also Mercedes and Red Bull might have the pace. That is what we want to see in qualifying. As we're currently looking at the TV at Lewis Hamilton. And he is getting ready in a moment to get out on the circuit. As Christian Horner and Adrian Newey looking tense, I think, on the pit wall. They're not looking unconfident, but they're not looking confident. Probably just keeping their cards close to their chest. As the session should be getting underway in just a moment, as Sebastian Vettel is now coming out of the circuit, so I assume the session has got underway, but they're just not telling us. And is it underway? So 12 minutes to go. The timer hasn't officially gone, now it has. So that timer you see in the top left is about 1 second behind. But there you go. as the 2 Ferraris, the 2 Mercedes, and the 2 McLarens come out on circuit to go for pole position. Of course, the 2 McLarens are not going to go for pole, but you know what I mean. They're in the top 10. They're there to fight. They can fight now, if you know what I mean. And the front of the pack at the moment is a McLaren, but I think it's soon to be a Ferrari as Lewis Hamilton comes out. Now, all 10 drivers who are into the top 10, that's the 2 Mercedes, 2 Ferraris, 2 Red Bulls, 2 McLarens, and 2 Renaults. They're now all on track with 11 minutes to go in qualifying 3. The final part of qualifying, the shootout. As they're now about halfway through the lap. There's a Red Bull. There's that. No, that's a Ferrari of Charles Leclerc letting people through. Because I'm guessing he wants to have some room for his lap. As Sebastian Vettel is now at the front of this outlap pack. As now Valtteri Bottas trying to pass a McLaren. Hopefully he doesn't get tangled up with them and blocked. But Sebastian Vettel has a clear track, and that's what you want, as the 2 McLarens are holding Bottas back a bit, but, you know, Valtteri will complete a lap. He just needs to make sure he doesn't get in traffic, and I think he's trying to make sure he can get ahead of the McLarens because he knows they'll be slow. Can he get ahead of Carlos Sainz? I don't think he can. No, Sainz is still ahead of him, and now Bottas has let Sainz go. As Sebastian Vettel starts his first run for pole position in Singapore. Can he do it? He has 4 poles at Singapore. Can he get the record-breaking 5th in Marina Bay? As we look into the eyes of the 4-time world champion as he goes into turn 5, opens the DRS. As Valtteri Bottas now starts his lap, and so does the 2 McLarens. As Sebastian does a 26.3 for the first sector, as Lewis Hamilton has now started his lap, and so has Charles Leclerc. And now Verstappen starts his lap, as Vettel now coming down into turn 10. And comes through 11 and 12, and then over the Anderson Bridge to turn 13, and looks fine at the moment, pushing very hard, opens the DRS. What is his middle sector time? It is 1:03.4 for the middle sector. That's a very good middle sector. Very good middle sector. As he now comes through, turn 16, turn 17, gets very close to the walls, now into 18, and Valtteri almost a second slower than Vettel. Vettel's on an absolutely brilliant lap. Comes through turn 21, gets as close as he wants to the wall. Through the final corner, and Sebastian Vettel does a 36.4. That's 4/10 off the outright lap record. Valtteri Bottas is about a second off so far. Here comes Valtteri Bottas to the line, and Valtteri goes second, but is 1 second off Sebastian Vettel. Here comes Lewis Hamilton to the line. What can Lewis Hamilton do? Comes to the line, and Lewis Hamilton also a second off, but goes second. Charles Leclerc goes second, but 3.5 off. Ferrari are back at the moment. Max Verstappen goes P3 and does a fastest final sector. Carlos Sainz is 6th. Lando Norris is 7th. Hulkenberg has just popped into 8th. Albon and Ricciardo about to do a lap. Ricciardo now goes 8th. What can Albon do? Albon goes 6th on a 37.9, which is an absolutely horrific lap time compared to his teammate. But at the moment, it is Vettel and Leclerc on the front row with 1 run to go. Who saw this coming? Sebastian Vettel has come alive in Singapore. Did he clip the wall on the exit of 19? Yes, he did. They'll have to check the left rear on his car to see. whether there is any sustained damage, but it is Verstappen P3. Verstappen almost on the front row at the moment. Hamilton 4th, Bottas 5th, both a second off the pace. That is alarming. Alarming for them. And I don't think there was anything really that wrong with their lap. Albon 6th. Carlos Sainz P7. Lando Norris P8. And then Ricciardo 9th. And Nico Hülkenberg in 10th. So it is, Sebastian Vettel on pole position. For the moment, though. For the moment. So if you are, again, a Lewis Hamilton, Mercedes, Red Bull or Max Verstappen fan, calm down because there is one run to go. But at the moment, your man who is on the screen is currently on provisional pole position. And I'm not sure Mercedes, unless they were running a very worn set of soft tyres, I'm not sure they can get pole. They're a second off. Here's Valtteri Bottas. Oh, Valtteri got a bit of oversteer in turn 2, but that's not worth a second. That's probably worth, what, a 10th at most. So that's still not the reason. And this is Hamilton at turn 7. Running slightly wide, but again, that's not why he's a second off. That's probably costing him, what, a 10th. And he didn't run that wide, still carried some good speed. So the Mercedes are in trouble. They are in trouble at the moment. And they are going to be a bit miffed as to why they are, as to why they're not anywhere near Ferrari at the moment on pole. And this order at the moment is not the order I saw after practice 2 and coming into this weekend. But again, there is one run to go. So there's plenty of time left for Max Verstappen, Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas to get pole position. I think Max can get pole. Lewis on pole, that'd be a very, very good effort considering he's a second off for the first run. And the cars should be coming back out on circuit in just a moment. Taslim Ahmed says, we saw when track temp is high, the murk is bad. There's been races this season where it's been high and they've still been good. So I don't think that's necessarily the case. I mean, look at Bahrain. They were still good in Bahrain. And, at France and tracks like that. They just haven't got the speed at the moment. I think that's what it is. I don't think it's down to track temperature. I think that affects them more so in the races than qualifying. But now we have the two Ferraris, Vettel and Leclerc. Leclerc, of course, the man on your screen in second place. Max Verstappen is now out on circuit, and so is the two McLarens and two Renaults. Here come the two Mercedes and Alex Albon in just a moment. But we have just over 3 minutes to go in Q3. And at the moment, I'd have to say it's between Vettel, Leclerc, Verstappen for pole. I don't think Hamilton or Bottas can get that pole position. I think they're too far off. But again, stranger things have happened. You never know what could happen in Formula 1. As, who is this? Sebastian Vettel again at the front of the pack. That's probably helping him in his concentration levels. Being at the front of the outlap pack to get his lap going. And he's once again at the front of the pack. Behind him is Daniel Ricciardo, I think. And then it's Max Verstappen. Then it's a McLaren. Then it's Charles Leclerc. With, I think, another McLaren behind him. Yes, and another Renault in front of him. But here comes Sebastian Vettel. Can he break the outright lap record and get pole position for the 5th record-breaking time? we are about to see as he starts his final run of qualifying. Through the final corner, opens the DRS and now comes down to the pit straight. Down into turn 1 right now. Throws it in. And car not actually looking that bad. Gets very close to the wall, but very quick. Now comes through to turn 5. He's giving it everything for pole position. Gets as close to the wall on the exit of 5 as he can. Now goes down on the run to turn 7 with DRS wide open. And clocks 264 kilometers an hour at the end of that straight. He's a 10th down on his lap so far. They're not a great first sector, but there's still time remaining for him to get the second and third sector right. Max Verstappen has improved his first sector. So Verstappen looking good. Vettel through turn 11, 12, into 13. And he is still looking good at the moment. Charles Leclerc has done a purple first sector. Watch out for the man on screen. The Monegasque, who's got the last 2 race victories. And Sebastian is not improving on this lap. So if he cannot get the final sector right, Vettel might not be on pole. As what can Max Verstappen do for the middle sector? He is improving, but he's still not close enough. Oh, Charles Leclerc almost hit the wall there. Got a bit of a tank slapper on through turn 12. That might cost him pole. As Charles Leclerc, and here comes Sebastian Vettel, and Vettel is pitting. So he thinks he can't go any faster. Leclerc is still up on Sebastian Vettel. Here comes Verstappen through turn 20 and 21. The timer is now off, and Max Verstappen goes, he stays in third. He improves his time, but stays in third. Charles Leclerc, what can he do? He comes to the final 3 corners. Will it be 3 poles in a row? Here he comes. Final corner, throws it in. Will it be pole for Charles Leclerc? Yes, it will. He's 2 tenths on pole. Can Mercedes respond? I don't think they can. Here come Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas, not exactly setting the world alight. Here comes Hamilton through 18 and 19. Now through turn 20, turn 21. What can Hamilton do? Now through the final corners. Albon now goes P4. Lewis Hamilton comes to the line and goes second. 2 tenths down. So it's Leclerc and Hamilton on the front row. What can Valtteri Bottas do? Only 5th. Only 5th. But it is Charles Leclerc on pole position for the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix, from Lewis Hamilton in second. Sebastian Vettel did not get the lap right when it mattered. He did well, Vettel, but when it mattered most at the very end, he didn't get the lap that he really should have got. So it is Leclerc on pole. Lewis Hamilton second. Sebastian does not really look happy with that, but still he must be happy that Ferrari have, or do look better. Vettel is third. Max Verstappen 4th. He'll be disappointed with that, Max. I think he could have gone into P3. Here's a replay of Vettel at turn 14. Oversteer on exit. He was down on his lap anyway up to that point. He was just pushing too hard, I think. And then it's Bottas 5th. Albon 6th. And then I don't know what the rest of the order is yet, because they're not showing it anymore. I'm sure they will in just a moment. So it hopefully is Sainz, Norris, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg. But guys, that is it for qualifying. And it is Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari on pole position. By the way, if we can get to 1,000 viewers, that'd be great. And well, to everyone who has tuned in today, thank you guys very, very much for tuning in. Great to have you guys along as always for another exciting qualifying session in 2019. Stella saying Leclerc is on fire, Mercedes are terrified. That's a great, great session for Leclerc. And if that is down to the pace of the car, which I think it is, then Ferrari, you have to say, their new upgrade has worked, because they shouldn't be getting pole here based on historical events so far in 2019. But it's great, though, that we have Leclerc and Hamilton on the front row. And because Ferrari's race pace is not good, if Leclerc can stay in P1, we're in for a very tough, great battle for race victory tomorrow between Leclerc, Hamilton, Vettel, Verstappen, maybe even Valtteri Bottas. But guys, let me know in the live chat right now, what did you think of qualifying? Let me know. Let me know what you thought. And for the next 20 minutes or so, I will react with you guys as to what happened in qualifying today. Count Blah, how the hell did Ferrari pull this? I think you have to say it's the new upgrade. As to the reason why they've got the pole, surely. Again, though, we do need to see in the race tomorrow what their race pace is like, because if their race pace is better than expected, then that is total confirmation that the new front nose cone and new rear floor on the Ferrari has worked. And if that is the case, we are in for a fantastic final 6 races after Singapore, because, you know, 3 teams up there is exactly what the Formula 1 needs. Astro Stevo did not see this coming. Forza Ferrari, says Antonio Skyline. Let's hope Leclerc will win it. Well, I know for you, because of who you support, you're hoping that. But I'm hoping just for a battle between Leclerc and Hamilton and Verstappen, Vettel and Bottas. If we get a full-on race between those 5, I think we are in for a great race. Hopefully there's no crashes like 2017, because I think we are in for a great 2-hour-long, 61-lap battle for the race victory. And I will say, Lewis's final lap was actually really good, but I think he will be very surprised that Ferrari have took pole position. And Mercedes will be very surprised that Ferrari have took pole position. And as Stella said, if you can do that, then make sure to do so. Let me look at some other comments. Here, Albon did really good. I will have to see, though, later on how close Albon was in lap time, because I don't know what his lap time was. And also, just as a quick heads up, from P7 to P10 might be incorrect, because I didn't have enough time to see who finished in that or those positions. If anyone out there can tell me in the chat right now who finished in P7, P8, P9 and P10, that'd be very much appreciated. Of course, I can get the order correct. Let's look at some other comments here. Kurt Borman, does this mean Ferrari will be competitive for the rest of the year? If Ferrari's race pace tomorrow is not too bad and they win the race on pace, or maybe not on pace, but they win the race, you know, tomorrow, then I think that's basic confirmation that their new upgrade has worked and that Ferrari can compete for race victory from now on, and that there's definitely more race victories to come. But I'm not going to say yet 100% the new upgrade has worked, because if they're still miles off in the race and they don't win and they still end up comfortably way off the winner, then I don't think you can quite yet say that the new parts have worked for Ferrari. So let's wait and see. If Ferrari win, then the new upgrades have worked. No doubt about it whatsoever. And if they have worked, then you can expect Ferrari in Russia, in Suzuka, at Kota, Brazil, those circuits to be right there for pole and race victory. But again, let's hold off on that and wait to see tomorrow whether they can replicate it. 7th to 10th is Sainz, Ricciardo, Hulkenberg, Norris. Right. Thank you for telling me that. I think it was Taslim Ahmed. Yes, it was. Thank you very, very much for saying that. Let me quickly do that. So Sainz is P7. That's good for him. He's always good here, though. And then Ricciardo 8th. Hulkenberg 9th. And Lando Norris in P10. Lando will be disappointed with that. He should be there with his teammate, really. But there you go. So let's see what you guys are saying. Mr. Labman says, and that is true. That's a very important reminder. Thanks for saying that. Don't forget, guys, the race tomorrow is 1 hour earlier. And that is true. Again, remember, guys, I will be live at 10 past 12 p.m. UK time. Not 10 past 1 like I normally am for the past few races. It'll be 10 past 12 p.m. UK time that I am going live because the race is starting an hour earlier at 10 past 1 p.m. UK time. So make sure to come along to that stream tomorrow and enjoy with me and Nib what is going to be a very tense Singapore Grand Prix. Right, let me look at some other comments here. Renault are coming good at last. I wouldn't say they're coming good, but they're getting better than they were, earlier in the season. I wouldn't say coming good, but getting better. They are improving. There is no doubt about that. And hopefully they can maintain this for the rest of the season and give themselves some kind of benchmark going into 2020. RD says after pre-season testing, this is what it should have been at the start of the season. Well, this is what Ferrari were kind of promising from what we saw in testing, was this type of speed, but they just haven't shown it. But in the last 3 races, they have. And you'd have to say, in terms of qualifying pace, since the Austrian Grand Prix, Ferrari have been very quick in qualifying. Because they got pole in Austria, could have got pole at Hockenheim. Hungary, they weren't, in terms of lap time, too bad. And then at Spa, got front row, Monza pole, and Singapore pole. So qualifying-wise, Ferrari are a very strong outfit. And that is, by the way, Charles Leclerc's, I think, 5th pole position. I think. Yes, it is. His 5th pole position of 2019. Great for him. Caleb Clark, come on Leclerc, win the championship. That's not going to happen. He's way too far behind. If this was Baku or Spain, then I'd say, you know what? Yeah, Leclerc after the past couple races could get the World Championship, but it's too late in the season. Ferrari's improvements have come too late, but going forward into 2020, maybe that's the jump in performance and the jump in motivation that they need. Red Bull is disappointing. Well, if you're going to say that Red Bull is disappointing, I think you've got to say the same for Mercedes, because Mercedes were the favourites for pole here. So I think you've got to say the same for them as well. I think Mercedes and Red Bull will be disappointed they couldn't get pole position here. So, yeah, I think, Red Bull disappointing, but also Mercedes as well. They're disappointing too. Valtteri Bottas, I think, will be very disappointed with himself, because he should have been at least in P4 at the absolute worst, but he's P5. Hamilton was probably expecting pole, but P2 is what he got. He'll be disappointed with P2. But of course, Ferrari, with one of their drivers, will be very happy. I think Charles Leclerc will be elated, of course. Sebastian Vettel will not be happy, though, because he could have at least put it on the front row, if not pole position. So it could have been better for Ferrari, but it is a better session for sure than they were expecting. Nib, great to see you, mate, says, tech analysis on those Ferrari upgrades upcoming. Yeah, you can guarantee that. We'll have to see where exactly they got this performance from. Chazzy, you think Charles behave tomorrow? Says Eugene Kelly. Well, that's the thing. I know what you're talking about in relation to Monza and all that stuff. It's hard to pass at Singapore, so the other drivers, if they're going to win the race, it might be in the pit lane. So it might not even come down to a wheel-to-wheel battle. Hopefully it does, because it'll be great to see Leclerc and Hamilton and Verstappen and Vettel and Bottas and all those drivers go wheel-to-wheel. But it might not even come down to that. So I don't think we'll see any dirty tactics, because it's very similar to Monaco is Singapore. Qualifying is 75% of the job, basically. If you get pole at this circuit, then you've done 3/4 of the job from both qualifying and the race. All you got to do in the race then is make sure you get the pit stops right, you don't get undercut from someone behind, and you get away at the start fine and have no reliability issues. Other than that, you'll win if you start on pole. So we'll see. I hope for a battle tomorrow, a wheel-to-wheel battle, but it is hard to ask at this circuit. But I think we are in for a good race, because the top 5, I think all of them could end up on the podium. Maybe even Albon if some chaos happens. Who knows? Do you think Ferrari will get back on their feet for the rest of the season? Says Hug G Dinner. Let's wait after the race tomorrow, and then we'll see. Because if they fall massively behind the race winner, if they don't win, then I think that they're still in a bad position when it comes to race pace and all that stuff. But if they do win and the pace of the car is not that bad, then yeah, I think Ferrari are in a race winning position for 90% of the races between now and the end of the season. But that's only if they win tomorrow. That's only if they win tomorrow. Mr. Labman says, okay, Chaz, a great chat, except the spams. Yeah, sorry about the spams, but, that's not my fault. We tried to, delete it as soon as possible. It's just people being dicks, basically. Let me find some final comments before I come off the stream. Stella says, for tomorrow, I don't see Hamilton overtaking Leclerc. The circuit is not as wide as Monza, so yeah. Only chance you get is at the start-finish straight, really. Well, you can have a chance on the second DRS straight, but again, you've got to be way faster and you've got to be right, under their gearbox, basically, to get the move done. As Stella said, if you don't get it done at the start, then you're probably going to finish where you are at the end of the first lap. So I think it's going to be a real race of attrition for tyres, for, of course, the power units and gearboxes, but also for the drivers, because they're all going to be pushing, of course, within the limits of the tyres and the car, but they're going to be pushing to still get, a podium or a race victory. So it's going to be a very physically and mentally tiring race tomorrow. And I think, honestly, any of the top 4 could win tomorrow's race. I think Max Verstappen can still win. I think Max probably will have one of, if not the fastest pace tomorrow. But the problem is he starts P4 and it's hard to pass here. So watch out for Max. He's not out of it for sure. Right, let's read a couple final comments and then we'll get to the end of the stream. Astro Stevo, is heat Merc's metaphorical kryptonite? Again, though, as I said earlier, there's been circuits this season where it's been hot and they've still done well. For example, Niv will know this. The first race, it was very hot and they, won 2 in qualifying and race. Bahrain, they were fine. Spain in the race, they were fine and it was hot. France, they were fine. So I don't think the heat is as bad as people make out. It is affecting their pace somewhat, but it's not telling the entire story. I think genuinely, today, Mercedes have not got a fast enough car for pole position. I think that's why they haven't got pole position. I don't think it's because of the heat, because again, there's plenty of examples where it's been hot this season and they've done well. Of course, we have Austria where they didn't do well, and it was very hot that weekend. But Hungary, in the race it was hot, they won. Spa in qualifying, it was hot and they, I think, did the best they could. So I think that whole heat thing for them is overplayed. I don't think it's as big of a factor as they make out or other people make out. I think it's just, you know, the car wasn't genuinely as quick today. And that just makes the race tomorrow even more exciting. And the final comment. Let me find the final comment and then I will come to the end of the stream. Who is on poll says, or asks Daniel, it is Charles Leclerc. Gross H. So basically the nose is working or was working. Yep, it is. And the final comment goes to Bruce Segal or Siegel, however you say it. And I echo this completely. He says, I just hope for a fun race, not too much, follow the leader. That's exactly what we want tomorrow in the Grand Prix. A Grand Prix that's going to be very hot and very, very interesting. But guys, that has been it for qualifying today in Singapore. Just to let you guys know, I will be uploading a review, a recorded qualifying review in about 40 minutes time, so at 4 PM UK time. That will be coming out so you guys can, you know, add further thoughts to what you thought of qualifying today. And again, I will be live with Nib at 10:12 PM UK time. I'll make sure, you know, to schedule the stream so you can count it down and work it out wherever time zone you're in. And then, yeah, we'll be live at 10:12. And then the race, of course, starts at 1:10. So don't forget to subscribe for that. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. Or go to my homepage and subscribe there and hit the notifications bell. And, yeah, do not forget to join us for that. And, of course, just after that, we'll have the race review as well. Also, don't forget to hit the like button. That really does help me, you know, see if you guys like the content. And also, it does help out the channel. As well, comment down below what you thought of this video and comment down below what did you think of qualifying and everything that happened in qualifying. Don't forget to join the Discord server, link below in the description. And that is, by the way, the best place for notifications of my videos and streams. So if you are missing out on notifications of my videos and streams, join the Discord and you'll stay up to date as long as you are active in the Discord. And as well, like my Facebook page, that's ChazzaHDF1 on Facebook. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Chaz6110 to keep up to date with me and what I'm doing. And check out my website, chazzahd.com, for more content like this. But guys, until my qualifying review in about 40 minutes time, and until the 2019 Singapore Grand Prix race watch along tomorrow at 10:12 PM UK time live, it has been me, ChazzaHD. Goodbye.